The Chosen Path, Episode 7 of 10. When the Chosen Face Spiritual Warfare. There is a battle that doesn't appear in photos, a war that no one else sees, but the chosen feel it, deep in the spirit. You try to pray, and distractions come. You try to rest, but anxiety strikes. You try to rise, and everything around you feels heavy. Not because you're weak, but because you are at war. Not a war with people, but a war in the unseen realm. A spiritual tension that wraps itself around your purpose, trying to suffocate your destiny before it is born. And the more aligned you become, the stronger the resistance gets. The moment you step into clarity, confusion begins to knock. The moment you get closer to breakthrough, oppression begins to whisper. Because the enemy doesn't attack those who are lost. He attacks those who are about to shift dimensions. And you, chosen one, you have felt the pressure, the weight, the exhaustion, not because something is wrong with you, but because something right is about to be released through you. You are not losing your mind. You are not under failure. You are under formation through fire. The battle is not a sign of weakness. It is a confirmation of spiritual elevation. Before heaven lifts you up, hell tries to pull you down. You're not imagining it. The pressure really did increase. The attacks became more frequent. The confusion hit harder. The silence became heavier. Just when you thought the breakthrough was near, everything seemed to collapse around you. But that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Darkness always roars louder when the light is about to explode. The enemy senses your elevation before you do. He sees the movement in the spirit before you see it in the natural. That's why the warfare intensifies. Not because you're far from your promise, but because you are dangerously close to it. The closer you get to your spiritual gate, the louder the opposition tries to confuse your path. That sudden fatigue, it's not random. That emotional instability, it's not just you. That spiritual heaviness, it's not normal. It's resistance. It's interference. It's an attempt to derail your alignment. Because the enemy cannot stop your purpose, but he can try to delay your readiness. He knows he can't cancel what God wrote, so he attacks your belief in it. But here's the truth. If the pressure increased, it means the gate is opening. If the fire got hotter, it means the gold is almost ready. If the darkness intensified, it means the light is about to break through. Hold your ground, chosen one. Because what's coming carries glory. And the battle was only trying to stop what cannot be stopped. The real war is not always around you. Sometimes it's within you. Not in the noise of people, but in the whispers of doubt, not in visible attacks, but in invisible thoughts. The enemy doesn't always show up with fire. Sometimes, he comes disguised as a whisper in your own mind. You're not enough. You're not ready. This is too much for you. Did God really choose you? These are not just random thoughts. They are weapons formed in silence, aimed at your soul. Because the enemy knows, if he can break your thoughts, he can fracture your faith. If he can sow confusion in your reasoning, he can block the clarity of your calling. That's why spiritual warfare often feels like mental exhaustion. Not because your body is tired, but because your spirit is resisting a battle in the invisible. Every chosen one walks through this valley, a place where voices compete with truth. Where imagination tries to override revelation, where fear tries to overwrite identity. But you must remember, your mind is not the enemy's territory. It is heaven's sanctuary. Guard it, feed it with truth, protect it with discernment, rebuke what doesn't align with what God has spoken over your life. Because the more you silence the enemy's lies, the louder heaven's voice becomes. You were not chosen to live in torment. You were chosen to walk in clarity, peace, and prophetic discernment. You received a word. You saw a vision, you felt alignment in your spirit, and then everything around you shifted, but not upward, downward. Suddenly pressure increased, doors closed, distractions multiplied, storms rose, and you wondered, did I misunderstand the revelation? But you didn't misunderstand it. You were being targeted because of it. Every revelation is followed by confrontation. Every prophetic word releases movement in the spiritual realm, both from heaven and from opposition. The enemy doesn't fight what is unclear, he fights what is confirmed. The moment you see clearly, he tries to distort your perspective. The moment you declare purpose, and he tries to plant doubt. The moment you begin to step into identity, he throws shadows at your feet, because revelation threatens darkness. Truth disturbs deception, and every word God speaks over your life becomes a threat to every system that tried to suppress you. So don't be surprised by the sudden turbulence. It means your revelation was real. It means your spirit touched something eternal, and now the enemy is reacting. But here's the promise. What God reveals, he protects, and what he speaks, he sustains. Your role is to stand, not to fight in your flesh, but to hold on to what was spoken. Because if the revelation brought the attack, then the revelation will also bring your victory. The enemy doesn't fear your voice until it begins to echo heaven. He doesn't fear your steps until they begin to walk in divine rhythm. He doesn't fear your gifts until they are aligned with purpose. What truly intimidates the darkness is not your ability, it is your alignment. Because when a chosen one becomes aligned, their prayers pierce the atmosphere. Their words shift environments. Their presence carries authority that cannot be explained. And the moment you start moving in alignment, things begin to shift, even if you can't see it yet. That's why the attacks come, to distract, to destabilize, to delay. Because if the enemy can disrupt your alignment, he doesn't need to cancel your calling. He just needs to confuse your path. But when you fight through confusion, when you press forward in faith, when you refuse to bow to chaos, you remain in position, and heaven moves through you. Alignment is not perfection. It's obedience in movement. It's staying in tune with what God is doing, even when you don't understand everything. The enemy fears that, because an aligned soul becomes a vessel of divine disruption. A single aligned chosen one can silence legions of confusion, heal wounded hearts, and awaken nations. That's why you feel the pressure, because you've stepped into alignment, and the spiritual world has taken notice. You've asked, why this battle? Why this weight? Why this fight? But maybe the better question is, what am I being prepared to conquer? Because the battle you're in is often a prophecy in disguise, a prophetic glimpse of your future assignment. The pain you feel today is a preview of the healing you'll carry tomorrow. The warfare you're enduring now is a mirror of the deliverance you'll release in others. You are not fighting randomly. You are fighting for territory. The very ground you are defending now in your spirit is the ground you will one day stand on in victory, not just for you, but for those who are watching your life as a path forward. The chosen are not assigned to easy paths. They are prepared in battle because they are destined to break chains. You've cried in silence, but that cry became a sword in the spirit. You've stood when everything shook, but that stance became a banner for others to follow. You don't just carry wounds, you carry weapons forged through those wounds. That's why the pressure has been so specific, so targeted, so intense. Because the enemy fears what you will break through, and heaven is equipping you to lead others through it. The battles you face today are the victories others will live tomorrow. You were called to rise, not just in triumph, but in testimony. Some of the battles you're fighting did not start with you. They are generational, inherited, transferred through bloodlines and spiritual patterns. Warfare passed from one generation to another until it reached you. But what no one before you could overcome. You were chosen to break. You were marked not just to rise for yourself, but to break cycles, destroy strongholds, and reset a spiritual legacy. That's why the warfare you face feels heavier than others. Because you're not just fighting your own battles, you're fighting for everything that came before you, and everything that will come after you. You are the first to see it clearly, the first to confront it, the first to carry revelation. And that alone makes you a threat to darkness. The patterns end with you, the chains break with you, the silence is interrupted by your voice. You are not just a survivor, you are a breaker of bloodline burdens. That's why your process has been deeper. That's why your pain was more intense. Because your purpose isn't personal, it's prophetic. You were chosen to stand in the gap, to close the breach, to rebuild the altar of your lineage. Heaven trusted you with what others couldn't carry, not to crush you, but to raise you up as a pillar of restoration. And when you rise, you don't rise alone. You rise with every generation that walked before you and every generation that will follow. The enemy thought he was slowing you down, but heaven was using the battle to elevate your authority. Because in the kingdom, authority is not given by position, it's earned in the furnace, it's forged in warfare. The battles you face are not obstacles, they are gateways in disguise. Every attack you endure, every storm you overcome, every lie you silence, every night you pray without answers, becomes a key to access realms of spiritual influence. You are not just surviving warfare. You are unlocking doors that only the faithful can enter. And behind those doors is not just peace, but power. Not just rest, but revelation. Not just healing, but mantles you were called to carry. This is why some of your greatest battles have preceded your greatest awakenings. Why the season of fire was followed by an increase in discernment. Why the pressure birthed deeper perception. The attack was not the end. It was the entrance. The pain was not a barrier. It was a threshold. Because spiritual authority is not simply taught, it's transferred in the trenches. And every wound you carry is now a testimony, every scar a seal, every prayer a declaration of rank in the Spirit. You are not where you were. You've stepped through the fire. And on the other side stands a new version of you, armed with glory, clothed in purpose, and ready to lead. Not all fire comes to destroy. Some fire comes to mark. And when you are chosen, you walk through flames that others can't understand. Not because you are cursed, but because you are being set apart. The fire didn't burn you, but it changed you. It altered your spirit. It sealed your mantle. It refined your voice. It branded your soul with weight and purity. The chosen are not defined by comfort. They are defined by consecration through fire. That season of pressure, that moment of pain, that dark night of the soul, was the furnace of heaven preparing you for the mantle you now carry. You didn't walk through the fire alone, and you didn't come out the same. There's a new glow on your presence, a new sound in your voice, a new authority in your silence. Because the fire that should have broken you only burned away what didn't belong. What remained is holy. What survived is pure. What stands now is unstoppable. The fire left marks no one can see, but the spirit realm recognizes it. Hell trembles because it knows what you've walked through. And heaven honors you, not just for surviving, but for being transformed without being consumed. You didn't escape the fire. You were consecrated by it. You've been through the fire. You've walked through the storm. You've endured the silence. You've battled in shadows. You've cried in places no one saw. You've stood in moments when everything tried to break you. And now, you rise. Not with arrogance, but with authority. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with fear, but with fire. You don't carry theory. You carry testimony. You don't speak from echo, you speak from encounter. You don't lead from the surface, you lead from the depths of what only warfare can teach. The refined warrior rises not because they won, but because they were transformed through the war. Your steps are no longer tentative, they are prophetic. Your words are no longer soft, they are weighty. Your silence is no longer weakness, it is strength restrained by wisdom. What you carry now cannot be taught in classrooms. It was carved in battlefields. It was sealed in solitude. It was refined in fire. You are not who you were when the battle began. You are a new creation. You are a voice of clarity. You are a vessel of glory. You are a warrior dressed in the fragrance of consecration. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but heaven was commissioning you. Now you walk in realms you didn't even know you had access to. Now you carry keys you didn't know you were earning. Now you are not just chosen, you are commissioned. And the world may not see it, but the spirit realm already knows. The refined warrior has risen. You didn't go through all of this for nothing. You weren't refined just to stand alone. You weren't called just to survive. You were forged to lead others through the battle. Because now, you carry what others need. Now, your voice carries healing. Now, your presence brings deliverance. Now, your wounds speak louder than sermons. Now, your scars are maps for those still trying to find their way. You are no longer just a soldier. You are a commander in the spirit. Heaven trusted you with the fire so you could light the way for those walking in darkness. Heaven allowed the battles so your testimony could break chains in others. You don't walk back into their lives the same. You return marked, armed, anointed, and ready, because those who walked through the fire first are now the ones called to lead others through it. You were chosen not only to rise, but to raise others. To fight for those who can't yet fight, to speak for those who lost their voice, to stand as a pillar for those who still tremble. And if you hear this now, it's because your spirit knows the mantle is upon you. The time is now. The battle is not over, but you are ready. Type in the comments, I was forged to lead others. Tell us where you're watching from. Let your fire speak. Let your journey echo. Subscribe to The Chosen Awakening. Episode 8 is coming, and you're walking into a new realm of leadership.